Leaders and executives have to make big stake decisions under stress all the time. But what separates your great decisions from the ones you massively regret later on isn't your intelligence. Hi, I'm Katrin, and I've worked in business psychology for over 2 decades now, and how leaders make better decisions under pressure depends much more on your nervous system state rather than strategy. But literally nobody talks about this yet, especially in leadership. The reality is, you as an executive have to make big decisions even after hours of draining meetings, no breaks, and without the luxury of time. Of course, you fully well know how important this decision is, but your brain feels heavy and frozen when your body tips into survival mode. So you make that crucial decision, and 3 days later, you're wondering why you said yes to something you should have said no to. After working with hundreds of leaders, I know how common this problem is. We never explore this in traditional leadership skills training though. Your intelligence doesn't protect you from bad decisions. In fact, highly intelligent leaders often make worse decisions than average ones, and there's a specific neurological reason why. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening in your brain when you make those decisions you later regret, and more importantly, how to fix it. We're going to cover 3 things. 1, the neuroscience of decision fatigue and why your brain literally runs out of fuel. 2, why smart leaders are actually more vulnerable to this than others. And 3, the practical solution and protocol for making high stakes decisions when your brain is compromised. What I'm going to show you today isn't about mental discipline or high IQ. This is about understanding how your brain actually works under high pressure. I've seen this pattern play out hundreds of times over 25 years working with executives and senior leaders across nearly every industry. Directors who run million and sometimes billion-dollar contracts making impulsive decisions at 4 p.m. that they'd never make at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's not that they're bad leaders, it's that nobody learns what happens to the prefrontal cortex after 8 hours of continuous decision making. The prefrontal cortex is where our most executive and strategic thinking happens, and when it shuts down, so do our best decisions. But what is totally counterintuitive is that the strategies most leaders use to combat this decision fatigue, having another coffee, pushing through and working harder, actually make the problem worse. And there's a much better way. It starts with understanding what's really going on in your brain. Okay, so let's talk about what decision fatigue actually is, because it's not what you think. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for strategic thinking, impulse control, and complex decision making, uses sugar or glucose as fuel. Actual measurable glucose, but the problem is it burns through glucose faster than any other part of your brain. Studies show it uses about 20% of your body's total energy. Now, every decision you make depletes this glucose supply. Big decisions, small decisions, it doesn't matter. Should I respond to this email now or later? Should we hire this person? What should I have for lunch? Each one costs you. And in the afternoon, after you've made hundreds of micro decisions and dozens of significant ones, your prefrontal cortex is running on empty. And this is where it gets interesting. When your prefrontal cortex runs low on glucose, it doesn't send you a warning signal. It doesn't say, hey, I have reached my limit, we need to pause. Instead, it does 2 things. First, its impulse control becomes weak and lets you make impulsive decisions. It starts taking shortcuts, so where you would usually hold back, it defaults to whatever is easiest in the moment, which often means saying yes to things you should say no to. But because it's harder, your brain just gives in. Or you avoid decisions altogether by keeping busy with other less important things and procrastinating. Second, it hands control over to your limbic system, the emotional reactive part of your brain. This is why you send that passive aggressive email late afternoon that you'd never send first thing in the morning. And it's why you approve budgets you haven't really reviewed. It's why you make impulsive decisions that your fresh brain would question. Your emotional brain is running the show while your strategic brain is literally taking a nap. And here is where being a highly intelligent leader actually becomes a liability. You'd think smarter people would be better at recognizing when their decision making is compromised, but the opposite is true, and there are 3 reasons why. First, smart leaders have more complex decisions to make. You're not just deciding yes or no, you're weighing multiple variables, considering long-term implications, thinking about stakeholder impact. Every one of those considerations depletes your glucose even faster. Second, smart leaders trust themselves and their intuition because usually it has been reliable in the past. You've made thousands of good decisions and your pattern recognition is excellent. So when your brain tells you something feels right, you trust it. But late in the day, that intuition isn't coming from your strategic prefrontal cortex. It's coming from your emotionally driven limbic system, and you can't tell the difference. And third, this is the one that gets most leaders. You're overconfident in your ability to push through. You've succeeded by being disciplined, by working harder, by not giving in to weakness. So when you feel that brain fog in the afternoon, you interpret it as a challenge to overcome, not a biological limitation to respect and honor. You try to think harder, you drink more coffee, you tell yourself to focus, and all of that actually makes it worse because it depletes your brain capacity and glucose even faster when your stress response gets activated. There's fascinating psychological research that shows even the most experienced, intelligent judges experience this significant decision fatigue and can make big errors with glucose depletion. So if even judges whose entire job is making careful, impartial decisions can't protect themselves, don't be hard on yourself. Almost no one teaches what I'm sharing with you here. So what do you do about it as an executive now? Because you can't just stop making big decisions in the afternoon, but you can make some other changes. I'll take you through a 3-step framework: prevention, recognition, and intervention. So let's start with prevention. First of all, protect your decision-making capacity for the time when your prefrontal cortex is still fueled. I worked with a business leader who restructured his entire calendar based on this principle. We allocated his mornings to strategic decisions, budget approvals, hiring decisions, etc., to strictly before 2 p.m. only. His afternoons were for routine tasks and meetings where he was gathering information, not making calls. I got the feedback from his team thinking he was being a bit difficult and odd at first, but within weeks, his decision quality improved so much that even his board got curious to what had changed. Also, reduce unnecessary decisions. Every choice costs you glucose, so automate, delegate, or eliminate every decision that doesn't require your precious strategic brain. Steve Jobs, for example, wore the same thing every day for this exact reason, and Obama did too. Not because they lack creativity, but because they know and understand that deciding what to wear depletes the same resource they need for running a big company or even a country. So think, what decisions are you making daily that don't actually need your executive function? Batch them, automate them, get them off your plate. Third, fuel your brain properly. Your prefrontal cortex needs glucose, but not from quick sugar hits that spike and then crash. Think complex carbohydrates, fiber, and protein. Skipping lunch to power through meetings is literally starving your strategic brain. So these are all great preventative actions you can take. Next is recognition. Learn to recognize when you are in decision fatigue. The signs are that everything feels equally urgent. You can't prioritize effectively anymore because your brain has lost the ability to distinguish between important and trivial. You're automatically saying yes or no without analysis. If someone asks you something and you immediately say yes just to get them out of your office, that is decision fatigue. Or you're procrastinating on decisions that should be actually quite straightforward. When your brain can't process complexity, it avoids decisions altogether. You're getting irritable or emotional about things that normally wouldn't bother you. That's a clear sign your limbic system is taking over. If you notice any of these signs, stop. Don't make the decision. Not yet. So finally, onto step number 3, intervention. So when you catch yourself in decision fatigue, you've recognized and realized this is what actually works. A, delay that decision if you can. Even just 15 to 20 minutes can make a huge difference, but even an answer like, let me think about that and I'll get back to you in the morning, is in many situations a completely acceptable response. I know it might go against your automatic instincts and even feel weak, but it's not. It's totally strategic. B, if you can't delay, reduce the decision to its simplest form. So don't try to analyze all the intricate variables. Ask yourself, what is the core decision I have to make on this today? What is essential for the decision? Strip away the complexity your tired brain can't process any longer. C, reset your nervous system. I cover one of the techniques in my last video. That 90-second physiological sigh doesn't restore glucose, but it does strengthen your prefrontal cortex function for now by reducing the stress response that's making everything worse. If you want the detailed tutorial on this technique, the video link is in the description, so make sure you watch that after this one. It's truly powerful and super quick to do. And then solution D, if it's a truly critical decision and you're already depleted, eat something with protein and complex carbs and then wait ideally 20 minutes and then revisit it. And your brain will have a bit more fuel to work with again. Let me give you my own example of this in action. As a business owner, I have to make complex strategic decisions almost every day. I have decades of experience, but a few years ago, I noticed that with decisions I make after about 3 p.m, I get easily distracted with shiny object syndrome and lose focus on what's essential and best for the business. I no longer ask sophisticated questions, nor evaluate opportunities properly, and I no longer identify risks thoughtfully. I know from working with other leaders that the exact opposite can happen with decision fatigue as well. You can become highly risk averse, see no longer opportunities, see purely risks everywhere, and default to big no's. Your brain might be protecting itself from complex analysis by just rejecting everything. So start tracking your decision making for the next 2 weeks. What's the difference in your morning versus afternoon reviews? Once you tune better to your decision fatigue, you can restructure. I make all my important strategic decisions before 3 p.m. now, and my team knows it. If something comes up in the afternoon, I schedule it for review in the next morning. There might be a slight delay in my decision process, but I'm saving tons of times further down the road, no longer chasing the wrong opportunities. So this is the difference between understanding your brain's limitations and trying to power through them. Now, decision fatigue is just one of the hurdles that affect leadership performance, but there are even deeper entrenched nervous system patterns that will be affecting your decision making specifically, and there are powerful solutions to overcome these automatic survival responses, because they can either be your biggest liability for leadership success, or they can be your strongest success asset. If you're curious which one is your primary pattern, then take the free leadership stress signature assessment. It takes just a few minutes and it'll show you exactly where your nervous system is compromising your leadership. When I use it directly in my workshops and one-on-one coaching work, it's always interesting to see how much leaders recognize themselves in those patterns. You will see that it's not about critically judging yourself. Each pattern has huge advantages, but also possible blind spots. But once you know them, you can work with them and learn how to channel your best energies for peak performance. Leaders that work with me know how to stop their nervous system controlling them and their decisions so they can be in charge of their actions, decisions, even their emotions and energies. I know from experience that nervous system mastery can transform even your burnout state, your relationships, your business success, and turn you into an incredibly magnetic natural leader, because you'll be leading from a truly balanced place of inner safety, subtleness, and strength. If you'd like to find out your personal leadership pattern after this video, check out the link in the description. But even without knowing your specific pattern, what I've shown you today will help you make better decisions throughout your day. So here's what you can do this week. 1, look at your calendar and identify when you're making your most important decisions. If any of them are happening after 2 or 3 p.m, see if you can move them to the morning. 2, track your decision-making quality. Just pay attention. When do you make decisions you later question? What time of day is it usually? What else was going on? And 3, experiment with the interventions I showed you. Try delaying one afternoon decision until the morning, see how your thinking changes. And 4, protect your glucose supply. Don't skip meals and choose slow releasing foods that are high in fiber and protein. Don't rely on coffee to power through. Maybe swap to green tea instead, and fuel your brain properly so it stands a chance. These aren't complicated changes, but they're based on how your brain actually works, not how we wish it worked. So I hope that you've seen that your intelligence definitely isn't the problem. Your discipline isn't the issue either. The problem is that you're trying to make strategic decisions with an energy depleted prefrontal cortex. Once you understand that, you can work with your brain's natural setup instead of fighting against it. You can take this even further by learning your specific stress response. So maybe take that stress signature assessment. The link is below. It'll show you which nervous system patterns are affecting your decisions the most. And if you want to go deeper and more personal, in my energized one-on-one coaching program, I'll show you how to work with your natural superpowers and overcome your specific blind spots. I'll teach you exactly which nervous system techniques to use in your specific situations. In my program, you'll get my expert guidance to optimize your energies, and then how to weave this approach into your wider team leadership and for sustainable business strategy. Or join us at one of our exclusive leadership retreats, where we spend 7 days building your nervous system success with a small group of other leaders. Because one size fits all stress management can even backfire, believe it or not. So start by understanding your stress patterns first. If you found this interesting, feel free to subscribe for weekly nervous system training for leaders specifically, and maybe share this video with someone else. Stay safe, subtle and strong, and I'll see you in the next one.